Welcome to Worlds Collide, a wrestling card podcast for wrestling fans by wrestling fans, featuring Tony Vella from WrestlingTradingCards.com.
This is like a stock market.
And Zhan Morning from Wrestling with Cards on YouTube. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer, I'm just posing the question. Join them as they navigate the world of wrestling cards, helping you build a bigger and better collection and making some money along the way. What's up, wrestling fans? Back again. Worlds Collide another week, trying to keep these episodes. I think we may be going on like a year since we've actually missed a week where we didn't put it on episode.
Really?
I think for both of us, that's a pretty good big accomplishment.
Yeah, this is the most consistent thing in my life besides my wife. I mean, what's that say about us? I don't know. Moving on.
trying to continue to pump out the content. We might sound like a broken record saying this all the time, but growing the pie, trying to get more collectors, trying to get more information out there for you to just take what you like, take what you don't like, and run with it the way that you do the hobby. Speaking of that, today's topic, collecting strictly for profit, people buying only to make money. I know this has happened in wrestling more recently, but let's take it back. Is this something that's been going on since the Fleer era when you were really heavy into this? Because I wasn't collecting, I would buy packs or boxes here and there, but I wasn't so into it then.
Well, back then we still had eBay. It was still kind of early. People who don't know the history of eBay, really, I mean, you should. It's called Google. Use it. It started in '95. I've been on that site since late '97. I mean, we had eBay. People were flipping, selling things like that. I don't know if it was a sense of like flipping how we see it today. But yeah, I mean, I was buying cases of wrestling cards back then, and I would take all my extras and sell them somehow. Some of it went on eBay a little bit, and some of it I actually had a spot at a collectible show called Frankenstein back then, and I just take all my extras and sell them there. But I was a master set collector, so I would open up and I would go and try to sell off things, obviously, to go and get the cards I needed like that to finish my master set. But you didn't really hear that kind of a buzz back then in the wrestling card community. You didn't hear that buzz of like people just buying strictly to make money. People who were buying wrestling were actual collectors. And then just trying to offshoot their extras somehow. I bought a lot of collections back in the day. People would buy boxes of Absolute Diva, buy boxes of Royal Rumble, Championship Clash, whatever it was. And then they get what they wanted out of it. And they say, hey, Tony, I have all this 5,000 count box of all these singles. Would you want to buy? Just give me whatever. It's like, then we make a deal. That was it. And they were done. They weren't looking to flip for making profit. They're looking to flip to kind of just say, I have extras and I got a little bit of money back and I get to keep my collection.
Right.
Today, it's a whole different market.
Yeah. So let's kick it off. I think the question begs to ask is like, who are the people that are doing this? Are these the wrestling collectors that are strictly coming in here and just saying, hey, I like wrestling, but I'm not attached to anything? Are they the people that we saw with Prism? Because there's no doubt about it that that's the type of people that were strictly coming into Prism when it first came out. Because if you go watch those breaks, they can't pronounce the names. They don't know who's who. They're freaking out about a silver Prism, which essentially is like a $2 or $3 card. So who do you think has actually kind of kickstarted wrestling as being strictly for profit?
I think you hit it right there. I think Prism opened that door. I think Prism really opened the eyes. It did two things. Prism put that big spotlight we've all been desiring and we've all asked for so many years to be recognized, acknowledge me, all of that. It happened. And At the same time, when you have that many new eyeballs coming in and you have those guys, the Prism boys who are familiar with that product and knowing they flip and they're out 2 weeks later, and that's kind of what they did. I think it took a lot of wrestling card collectors by surprise. Granted, there were podcasts here and there. I don't know who they were saying, kind of saying, hey, maybe not. We're interviewing people who are saying like, this is the biggest thing ever, da da da. And it was the biggest thing ever for us in the right way and the wrong way.
Yep.
But either
Still to
way,
this day, we're
to the,
seeing
to,
both.
and we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
So I think that the Prism release for our hobby is a mark in history for if you want to look at like if you want to write a history book about wrestling cards, that's going to play a very big point going forward 15, 20, 30 years down the road from
It
now.
was like the
Because
first episode of Monday Night Raw. It was a huge deal, but it also kind of sucked at the same time. But it laid
exactly.
the groundwork for what was down the road.
It laid the groundwork. We were warned for a lot of things in our hobby about Prism, about this, about parallels, about that, set collectors are done. Might as well get out of the business. All these negative things being said about it like that, and yet people found ways to adapt. We all kind of, this big storm came through. It passed. We see the wreckage. We're rebuilding. We're having a good time now doing our stuff. I think that's the first point that people really got to see flipping and people who are doing strictly for profit in our business in our hobby.
Mm-hmm.
It's been there before, but I mean, I interviewed the guys from Steel City Collectibles over a year and a half ago, and they were like, "Yeah, we just don't break a lot of wrestling. It's not a high end dollar, so like we're not going to be really breaking, Transcendent." But they weren't even going to break. We said we might once in a while, maybe might break like an Undisputed, but even that's a cheap product compared to what they're used to breaking, kind of
Right.
thing. So it just wasn't in their wheelhouse to go and break wrestling and flip and flip and flip because there wasn't a lot of money made. It's like it fits exactly what I always say about wrestling: not enough zeros, and so why bother? Prism comes out, that all changed.
So
Now it became a common thing now.
so let's talk about opening boxes. Breaking is a huge thing. Wrestling fans have now started to understand breaking, which I never
Mm-hmm.
thought. I thought they were going to be basement dwellers their whole life. No, no, no.
No,
Wrestling
no, no.
fans have they're understanding digital now. They're understanding whatnot. They know how these things work. And I think kind of the old way of thinking for some people was I'm going to rip a case and I'm going to flip what I rip and I'm going to make money. But
Yep.
that doesn't really happen that way anymore. So then it kind of begs the question, why are people opening boxes? And I think, is it entertainment? Is it strictly, because me and you actually talked offline this week just through a couple messages about breaking and how much money can be made out of
Yep.
breaking from the breaker's perspective. So why do you think people are still opening boxes if we've almost seen that, or I guess you can flip boxes still, but even that has kind of died down from what it did in during like 2020, where you could double your money on a sealed box. Like it was no, real quick. But what
I
do you
mean,
think?
I jumped in as of this recording about a week or so ago. I jumped into my first ever whatnot, and I thought it was great. First off, overall experience great, very easy to use. Definitely is eBay on crack. It can be addicting, and so I think that you're kind of getting that impulse thing right away to try to. I don't how dare quick and then you got to pay immediately, which is awesome. I love that feature.
Yep.
It's there's still some fun in that. I think people become more creative in how they break things now, where they can have like picking letters. People in the wrestling are finally learning and taking lessons that they're learning from watching sports breakers.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, oh, well, I can pick teams. Well, we don't have teams, but I can pick brands and I can do things by first letter. Okay, you bought the B's. Well, Becky Lynch and and Bianca Belair. Those are big names. So I can charge a little more for B's. But
Yeah.
D, oh, Dexter Loomis. I can charge less for that. R's, oh, Roman Reigns, Randy Orton. That's going to be big money.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think people become smarter about that, and I think that within the wrestling card community, we're seeing more wrestling collectors selling to wrestling collectors.
Yes.
So we're not seeing as many. That Prism stuff is kind of come and gone, and hopefully wrestling card collectors have learned their lesson from that. So when the next Prism set comes out, they go, no, fool me once. But now we have wrestling collectors selling to wrestling collectors, which I think is a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. From the majority of people that I've dealt with, most most of the time they are understanding from, I'm talking like off of eBay, like if I'm doing a trade or if I'm doing just strictly buying from somebody through Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or something, most people have been either like very understanding of prices, or I know they've got something so rare I've just got to pay the piper and whatever
Hmm.
that, that's not like they're trying to do the prism thing to me. It's just like, hey, they understand the value, but they're also going to try to not, run me over the coals for it, so to speak, just to get it. So I've had
I am still seeing some people posting things and also reacting to events that are happening. So our market has changed and adapted to those kind of sports mentality too,
mhm,
where it's like, oh, Vince is gone. Triple H and Stephanie are now running. So now people are like trying to hike up those prices, new regimes and
right.
stuff like that. We have, Cross coming back, Loomis comes back. Cards that were, $5-10 a piece now are 20-25 bucks a
Yep.
piece now. So like that, so people are starting to react that way, and there's
It's
still,
exciting, I think, but
it is, and there's also a little bit of, I think some of those guys still sitting on some of the product that they probably lost their ass on, and now are still trying like, well, nope, I'm going to hold firm on my very outrageous price because I'm going to try. I got to make my money back.
whole topic for no whole
Yeah,
episode.
and it's just like, sometimes you got to flip that inventory at a loss to go and
Yeah,
turn that into something more positive and profitable.
100%.
And it's just, but I think I see that's less and less. I think our hobby right now, when it comes to the flippers, is in a much better place. I think we actually had to go through that storm of Prism to come out the other end a better hobby, a better collector base, because we learned our lessons. We all bitched and complained one way or another and watched the divides, and we came out of it, relatively unscathed, and I think a lot smarter, hopefully.
Well, and we've also seen record selling prices like we've never seen before. Like
Consistently,
that was a result.
consistently.
Yes.
Yes.
And this even trickles back to Topps products now.
Yeah.
You could see those selling for even more than they ever have. And a year ago we were like, oh, $1,000 card, that's a big deal. And now it's
Yeah.
like, 15. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
next.
I mean everything from seal wax, old stuff has gone, kind of been affected by that. Even to stuff like, I never would have thought that my 2006 and 2007 Topps Chrome stuff would have been,
Yeah.
gone up in value. I mean, even from the base set level, cards went up in value. Things that I couldn't get rid of for a quarter,
Hmm.
are probably now at least, a buck, $2, $3, $4, on average, with, obviously key names going for more, but
Sure.
just regular chrome, and then your low level refractors, then your X fractors. I mean, those things are going for good money now.
So I've got 3 points that I kind of want to touch on. One of them, two of them we had in our notes, one of them we didn't, and that's the one I'm going to talk about right now. We talk about flipping and making money and who's actually buying wrestling cards to just make money on and not actually collect. Do you feel like me and you, or the Card Foundation, or Brett McGrath, or anybody that's got a platform talking about wrestling cards, when we talk about markets and we talk about buying and selling and how we do things, do you think we actually have any kind of negative aspect as like, because I feel sometimes like I talk so much about creating a self-funded hobby, meaning I can buy my own PC cards, buy the ones that I sell that I don't care about.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, you can pay bills if you need to do that as well, but like I set out to not necessarily make a full-time job of it. I set out to like make that full-time job money to just pay for cards. That
Mm-hmm.
was the whole goal when I started, but I think maybe sometimes people hear my content and they're like, this guy's a flipper, all he cares about is money, and little do they know they haven't seen my cross cards or something like that. So do
Yeah.
you think it's our responsibility to clear that up, or do you think maybe people take us the wrong way? What do you think?
I think they have to continue to keep doing more homework and probably not listen to just bits and pieces, but listen to the whole story.
Good
Because a
point.
lot of times, maybe they only caught certain things. It's like anything else. You can just make a statement and quote something, and someone will take the one word out of that sentence and use that as like, well, you said this, yeah, but you didn't take it. That's the whole point of taking things out of context.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't listen to the whole story. Listen to my whole story first. They don't know. I don't even know, as much as you and I talk. I don't know all this shit that you go through every day. You don't know all the stuff that I go through every day, and how I'm building my collection, how I do my thing. Uh, People out there are they're still going to buy. People are still going to buy, and people are still going to sell. That's always going to happen. That's not what this is about.
Right.
They're just going to they'll continue to keep buying in the way they want to, whatever's going to make them happy. So you should do your homework. Listen to the whole story that people are telling you. I think that we're doing a good service by letting people know that's what the whole. But we wouldn't be doing this because we want to start spreading bad news and bad information like that. We're out there trying to help educate people to be smarter, better collectors, not just from a profit standpoint, but just from collecting and having fun standpoint of educating people that there are different ways to collect. Like I have mentioned this many times before on many podcasts with you. I never was a player collector. I became a player collector because I changed because I knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do before. I didn't want to get into that before. I knew what it cost. I can't afford to do that anymore. I can afford to do this, and I'm having just as much, if not more fun now doing that. I still flip things when I can. I don't sell as much anywhere near what you guys sell, but when I can, I'll try to sell things to, kind of fund, my personal collection. And if I make a couple dollars on the side on top of that, great. I'll just put it right back in the hobby anyway.
Right.
So there's no wrong way here. It's like that.
You said, doing your homework, and I think this is something interesting that I've kind of stumbled onto when I start talking to friends, family members, people that are adjacent to the hobby, outside the hobby, maybe they collected when they were a kid or something like that. And you start showing, okay, well, this is a Hogan PMG, this is the 82 All-Stars Andre, this is what this means. It seems like the common question is, what is this worth?
Of course.
Not tell me well, this is interesting, tell me more. And so I guess my question to you is, what do you think it's going to take for us to kind of make that switch? Because as we've seen, like, some of the people who've actually made the most money are the people who like the cards for what they are and end up just holding on to their collection until they need to get rid of it. So what do we need to do within wrestling cards to continue to shift that to, these are cool because they're cool, not because, hey, this is worth this, and that being the primary driver.
That's never going to change, I don't think. Nothing. You can't do anything about that. I mean, the two things that I always get when someone looks at a wrestling card for me is like, oh, I remember that guy. And the other one
I get that a lot. Yeah.
Oh, what's that worth? Those
Right.
are the two things all the time. So it just comes with the territory, man. It doesn't, it's not going to change. As our hobby will grow, maybe we'll have less and less people ask those kind of questions. But even within the hobby itself, people, on social media all the time will post, hey, what's my card worth? That kind of thing, because that's what they want to know. And I have this, you don't even know what your own card is worth.
Or take the time to not be lazy and figure it out yourself with eBay.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a world now where it's at your fingertips that you can go and find things. I understand if it's brand new. It's like it's a number to 25 or number to 10 thing. This came out. Nobody else has it listed yet. But you can still kind of go out there and maybe do a little bit of homework. Like, hey, there's no comps, but I saw that the 2020 version sold for this kind of thing. What do you think? Is that still comparable? I mean, I can see doing that. At least you did a little bit of legwork.
Sure.
But when you just come flat out saying, here's my card, what's it worth?
Yeah.
It's worth you checking it out. That's what it's worth.
Yeah, doing some homework. You said it, doing the homework. I guess, and I'm not trying to be like some elitist collector, because clearly I flip and sell things all the time. But I guess when it comes to cards, like, I find cards I haven't even talked about yet that are, some are wrestling and some are not wrestling at all. And I find a connection, and I'm like, I've got to have that card, because I don't care if it's a $5 card or a $500 card. Like, there's a connection there. I want that. I want that because I can relate to it for this, or this. And if that means I have that in my collection for a year, or I have it in my collection for like 20 years, like, it doesn't matter. There's a connection there, and that connection is more important to me than the dollar amount that is associated behind that. So when I say that, how do we get that to change? I'm not saying that because I'm better than you, I'm this elite collector, collectors over. No, it takes everybody. It takes flippers, it takes dealers, it takes, people who don't ever want to sell anything.
But not everybody's the same. Not everybody's the same mindset that you are, or I am, or whoever else they want to compare it to. So everybody's unique and different. Everybody collects their own certain way.
Well, and it takes them all too to keep this thing going.
All of them, exactly. But I mean, if everybody was going to be as well versed as you are in what you do, so like that, then everybody would be doing it.
Sure.
But that's not the case. If everybody was, as well versed and works as hard as Gary Vee, we'd all be great, multimillionaire entrepreneurs.
This is true.
So it's just it's like you said, it takes every one of these type of people to kind of make the hobby go through. You got to navigate through some choppy waters sometimes. Sometimes it's very smooth sailing. It's a stupid saying. It is what it is. There's some people that are not going to change their mind. All you can do is show your excitement and your love for what you are into, and maybe that inspires someone to go like, dude, Zhan is so into this particular cards like that. Like, maybe I don't like that particular card, but I do like this other genre of other things over here. Do they have cards for this?
Exactly.
I love Stranger Things. Do they make cards for that? As a matter of fact, they do.
Yep. And I've actually gotten some messages with that. Like, I see your your passion, your collection of cross stuff is so cool. I've actually started doing that in this realm or over here with this player or this set. And I'm like, the whole point of us doing this content has paid off for that one person.
Yeah. I mean, even at home, my wife does not collect cards. She didn't even, and she met me, we get married. I got involved in that Top Slam app.
Mm-hmm.
She jumps on it too, just to go and have fun, to show support, and got addicted to it just like I did. And that's gone. But now she's collecting WNBA cards because she's a fan of WNBA. Never collected cards in her life before like that. But because of what I do with the wrestling stuff, and then through wrestling connections, somebody sent me Mike the Cleaner, I think it was. He sent me Anthony. He sent me a little care package of Phoenix Mercury WNBA cards like that.
Perfect.
And I showed to my wife. She goes, "These are cool. Now I would collect these." And now she's out like, "Hey, this person said they have all complete sets from 97 to 2003. They're offered." She's going through this whole like checking comps, like asking questions, and she's into it, which is so cool.
That care package that he sent just set it off. That's amazing.
It set it off. Yeah. And I have him to thank for having less money in my wallet, but thank you.
So let's move on to the last point, and I think this is a little bit more of a tricky one, and this is one where I can't judge anybody on this, and that is, what's your PC versus what is technically inventory? I know people that kind of take the approach to cards like you take your approach to the checklist. Or your checklist is, the site is your collection, your collection of information. And then I see people that, whether they're dealers, whether they're store owners, or whether they're just people that do eBay or, transact a lot, even off of eBay, their inventory, they look at as their collection. So they look at stuff that, hey, I might have this, this card come through that's really rare. And hey, I got to own it for a minute. Now it's time to go to someone else so I can make some money and share that with someone else. But then you have the people who, strictly look at, well, this is PC, this is not sellable. I'm always in the camp that, everything's got a price.
Yep.
And I think you can find a really good balance with that, because you are able to kind of take the emotion out of a lot of it to let it go to then buy the other stuff. And I've already said it. If any of you guys are listening, if you want some like rare rock stuff or some vintage stuff, like, come and ask me, because there's going to be a point where I'm going to start selling off a lot of that stuff to be prepared to pay for all of the cross one-of-one golds, all that kind of stuff when he starts coming out in the Panini release. So what's your take on that balance between the two?
It's hard for some people. It was a learning. It was time consuming for me to learn how to kind of balance that. I've gotten to the point now where that's part of the thing of being a player collector too, because now I'm focused on something specific. Everything else now becomes a secondary thing to me.
Yep.
So if it's not the utmost important thing to me, then the secondary thing to me, that can go first. I mean, I sort of prioritize things mentally, like, this, like, I'm definitely this, what I'm collecting, I'm keeping at primary, secondary, then third, then fourth, and fifth. If I had to rank things like that, I could.
Right.
Almost everything would fall below. Anything that's below my primary is pretty much all on the table for me. It's like that. I had to get rid of. I had to learn that a while ago, so it was a time consuming thing for me to try to get used to that. Not worrying about FOMO. That kind of stuff, and like, well, I gotta have it all, I gotta keep everything, I'm gonna hoard it all, kind of thing. I've gotten better at it. Some people just like you said, I know some dealers that I used to work with back in the day for in non-sport cards that treated stuff like that. Like, well, I buy everything because I buy direct from Inkworks and Rittenhouse and blah 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 and all these different places like that. And they had cases and cases and cases like that. They would flip stuff. They would just kind of like, well, yeah, I had the one of ones. I had them all. They came through my warehouse and I owned them. I had them, looked at them. They were so cool. And boom, sold them to somebody else. None of it means anything to them at the end of the day. Like they don't collect anything. I guess I don't know.
Did they look at the like? Did they actually appreciate the cards? Because I know there is also a segment out
Yes.
there that doesn't know anything about the cards, and they do it from just a monetary
Correct.
perspective.
Yeah. This guy, his name was Julio, and had a business called Julio's Collectibles, and he was one of the largest non-sport dealers in the country. I mean, there was hardly anybody out there who specialized specifically in non-sport. And I'd help him out on weekends sometimes before I got my booth there at Frank's in the mid to mid 90s. I did, and then but he did that. He break open so goes, this is really beautiful looking product, really well designed kind of stuff like that, and just still sell it. He just still sell it, but he would comment on things like, oh, this was such a horrible looking card, so I don't like these borders and da da da, or I like this. He always had a comment about the different cards. He appreciated it for what it was.
It reminds me of like a music critic or a food critic. Like
sure.
They go through and they look and they review and they critique. It doesn't mean that they don't know what they're talking about and they're not a true fan of whatever their genre is. It just means that they're doing things a different way.
He knew all that stuff. Like when Spider-Man movie first came out, that set a big wildfire on Marvel products. Marvel stuff was going like crazy after that first Spider-Man movie came out with that 2002 or something like that. It was. And he we had a lot of people coming in. They see all like, hey, do you have any Spider-Man? Do you have Marvel? I'm looking for Marvel masterpieces. I'm looking for da da da. I'm looking for all the Amazing Spider-Man, da da da, all these different things. It's like, oh, they have Twilight Zone cards. Who makes those? Oh, Rittenhouse. Oh, they have Outer Limits. Oh, there's Xena, Beauty and Bronze, the new one. What's all this? I mean, Olivia, Studies in Sensuality. Who's that? Comic Images. I mean, all these different types of cards like that, and everything. Like, even if it was artwork kind of cards, like they would have, Olivia, Jennifer Janesco, it's like that. The different ones that Comic Images had connections. They did a lot of art stuff, Eastman and the different guys. And he was like, I'm not a big fan of that guy's artworks like that. They're cool cards like that. Or you'd see like a Janesco card, like, oh, she's really talented. I love these kind of designs. And he was always appreciative of everything that ever came through his hands, even though he didn't collect any of it.
Makes sense.
So there's at least that aspect of it. And then you have other guys who just buy to sell. And I was that guy when I was getting into it with him in the late 90s, early 2000s. I would buy a case. And I had guys who would come to Julio's booth to come visit and see me, and they would call me their non-sport card broker. Like, hey, what's the hot thing to get now? And I said, well, after years of doing this like that, I pretty much, you stay away from movie products and you just kind of go with TV products. That's what's hot, because outside of Star Wars, nothing really movie-wise sticks as far as collectability. And then Lord of the Rings came out with all their autographs and and then because at the time it was like Buffy was popular, Angel was popular, Roswell was popular, and then Inkworks got involved with all the autograph cards, and that's a whole different story. But there's different strokes for different folks and stuff like that. I really appreciate someone who flips that still appreciates the product before they flip it. But I also understand those who just want to earn it for pure money. I also think we live in a time now too where products are so priced high now, it's harder and harder to kind of make that money back.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we're paying higher prices for less product. It used to be 36 packs a box and 24 packs a box and 18 packs a box.
Yeah.
And now you're getting like, you get 10, 11 cards in a pack. Now you're getting 8 cards, then 5 cards. Sometimes it's 1 card in the whole box. I mean, that's it. I mean, it's hard.
We also didn't mention the crowd that I think wrestling card collectors kind of fall more into this, and that's the just buy and hold everything. And, like, I don't like that approach because I feel like a lot of times people, that cases and cases and trades and this and that. Next thing they know, they're on the episode of Hoarders because they can't walk through their house because they have so many cards.
But where do you draw the line on that, though? Because someone can accuse you and me as being hoarders, like, oh, just send me all my cross cards. I'll take them all.
I will gladly trade my duplicates for other cross cards.
Yeah.
like that I don't have. But what I'm talking about is like, having 75 copies of a base card of some random Greg Valentine,
Sure.
and just sets after sets and like unorganized and just buying, ripping, putting them in a box and
Yeah, yeah.
and what I see that's fine if that's what people want to do. But I think the real detriment here is two things. People could be sitting on piles of cash in boxes that they're not putting forth the effort to even try. It's what you said, doing the homework
Yeah.
to try to figure out what you have. Number one. Number two, I see so many people out there. I want that Rock autograph. I want that Vince autograph. I want the WCW autograph. Okay, sell the stuff you've got, because I guarantee you've got equity in what you've collected over the years to sell to get what you want now.
But I
That's
like
how.
that stuff. I don't want to move it. I like to keep it.
Then keep it and then figure out how to get it. But I
Yeah.
think people, like, you got to take the emotion out of, like, it's what you said. What do you prioritize?
Yep.
Pick the thing you're not going to. So for me, like, my 82 All Stars, 82, 83 All Star sign, Hogan PMG. That's like two kind of untouchable things,
Mm.
unless you're going to offer me life changing money.
Yeah.
Next up would be like the cross stuff. What's left after that? I don't know. I could probably part with like, these things are cool, but I could probably part with a lot of it.
Yeah.
That, and I'm not saying people have to approach it that way, but when I see people complain about what they can't get, I'm just like, you have such a massive collection. Surely you could part with something to then pay for that. And you don't have to dip into your savings. You don't have to like go work harder at your job. It's just take some stuff you have and move it to something else.
Yeah. We've talked about that a lot of times
Yep.
too, about just flipping stuff like that and, putting in the work to do that. If you want to, just take your stuff that you're not as attached to and move it to something that would be more that you are attached to then, I guess.
Yep. Simple as that. Is there anything else that you want to get out there as far as like collectors buying strictly for profit or anything like that we haven't touched on? I think we kind of ran the
It's
gamut.
going to be an interesting months ahead, years ahead with the Fanatics deal.
Yes.
And how that's going to affect everything from breakers who relies on just flipping
And
to
getting product in.
yeah, and then getting that product, and then if they can get that product, can they still flip it at some kind of a profit as well? It's already a very small profit margin you're already working on as it is, I think.
Yep.
Unless of course you hit that one monster cards like that and still offer it, but then you're even down to the store owners. Like, we don't even know what's going to happen with store owners,
Yep.
shops. I mean, it's a wild, crazy world like that we live in when it comes to this hobby. Like I never would have thought this in a million years if you asked me 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So I would God asked me 25, 30 years ago when I started collecting. I mean, I've been like, internet, what are you talking about?
And maybe that's another reason why so many people are going for profit over passion when it comes to the hobbies, because there's just so much money to be made that they're just like, I don't need these pieces of cardboard. Give me the money.
Which is fine. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're going to go out there, I mean, and sell, then there's still a good equal number of people, and that market is growing, as we know, that still want to buy it and they want to hold on to it. Because if there's one thing about wrestling cards over anybody else, these card collectors from the wrestling card community like to sit on their stuff. Once it's in somebody's hands for some specific cards, it's going to be very hard to get it out of their hands.
100%.
So it's just that nostalgia aspect of unlike any other hobby that people sort of connect with and hold on to. So I get it.
Yeah, there's so many different sides we can take, and I don't think really kind of the way that we've broken this down, I don't think there's any right or wrong way. It's just different ways of thinking and looking at things, which, once again, whole reason we started doing this content is to just give you different ways to think, different ways to approach, and different ways to just have fun, because that's what it's all about. Because wrestling cards rule. That's right. We got to fit that in every single episode. That is our new shtick, high class entertainment here. Tony, let everybody know where they can find you.
WrestlingTradingCards.com. Everything is there.
Wait, is that a site where I can go, how much is this card worth?
No, you can't. You cannot. We don't actually offer pricing. You would go to the wrestling card price guide for that.
Absolutely.
He will be able to help you. You can, I mean, it's a guide, folks, too. Anytime someone's offering you price evaluations like that, you're going to go to a guide, whether it be a printed guide, whether it be Paul's website for a guide. It's a guide. Go look up Webster's dictionary and find out what the word guide means. It's just to guide you, okay? It's not the end-all be-all price. It's just to help you get a somewhat, blanket little understanding of what the ballpark range of my item might be worth. It could go higher, it could go lower. It's kind of an averagey type of thing. So yeah, so just go out there, use all the resources you can out there. Use WTC to find out if it actually is a legit card and exists. If you have something you don't have, please let us know. We'll like to archive it. Check out Paul's wrestling card price guide. Check eBay. Check all the different services that sell cards, man, and just go look at completed items. Don't look what's listed. Go, this card's going for $1,000. It is. I don't see anything that's sold for $1,000. Oh, these guys over here all listed for $1,000. Not what I'm sold, buddy. Talk to me about things that actually sold. Okay, completed auctions. And that's kind of what you need to do. Go out and do your homework. It isn't even really hard homework. No one's asking you to how to, try to figure out trigonometry here. Okay. This is not quantum physics. Just go out there and do some simple Google searches. You're doing it for Pornhub already. Just do it for cards.
I don't think I can top any of this. That was like the ultimate promo right there. Maybe we need to start getting into the wrestling business, like the wrestling. We'll be writing great promos talking about wrestling cards rule and doing the homework.
Where can they find Zhan rules stuff?
Oh, I should change my handle to that. At Zhan rules. No, I'm actually just kidding. At Zhan Morning on all social platforms. Wrestling with Cards on YouTube. That's my main hub for content. Wrestling with Cards, the podcast. And of course, Worlds Collide podcast. I'm going to go out on a limb. The best wrestling card podcast there is, because wrestling cards rule, and we're the only ones that continually say wrestling cards rule. Please subscribe wherever you're listening to this on. Tell a friend about the show. Leave us a review. Keep telling people about wrestling cards. Keep growing the pie. We need more wrestling fans to collect wrestling cards because they rule. Until next week, thanks for listening. Subscribe.
Cards rule!